Welcome back to Face in the Crowd. We are chatting to the CEO of Zenzele Fitness Group, Tumi Phake. Tumi, looking back at your childhood, what was life like?
My childhood was very interesting. I grew up in a massive household. I lived with Ukoko in Zulu, my grandmother. And we were siblings and cousins, and in the black culture, it's pretty normal to live with your grandmother, with your aunties and uncles. And so in my household, there was probably about 20 of us. And so, that was the dynamics, but it was also quite an interesting dynamic. My grandmother was a businesswoman. In township standards, we were actually, we were doing pretty well. We had, butchers, and there's a shop, and etc. And I think also my entrepreneurial probably teaser started there, with my grandma. My grandmother had no education. She used to sell tomatoes, and for her and my grandfather to then look after like 20 kids, not a single day did I go to sleep without food on the table. My grandmother was a very forward-thinking person. She really wanted to get a good education for us, and I'm very fortunate for those things, and I think that is where it started. So I was very much an avid sports person. I played a lot of sport. So I played basketball, I did track, and I was just really involved in a lot of sports activities. And I think that is what, I love music as well. I'm a very much big hip-hop person, and I think that those are the things that kind of maybe I stayed out of trouble because of those things. I think I spent most of my life playing sports instead of being on the streets and whatever, and I look back and I'm like, well, maybe that was a good thing. I don't know what else I would be doing, and school and education. So typically that was my life. My life was always in the sports ground, playing sports.
But you end up in private banking.
Yes.
Was that something you always wanted to pursue, or
No,
what was your childhood dream?
So my dream was, I actually wanted to be in the NBA, but I wish I was a little bit taller.
Yeah.
So my dream was actually to, I was a very avid sports person, and I played basketball, and I really, at the time, funny enough, I thought I wanted to, go to the US, go into college or university in the US, and I think things changed. Reality strikes. You realize you don't have the right height. I think, but the funny thing that happened is, I started working at a bookstore. So I worked at Exclusive Books. It was probably one of my best jobs. And my interest in reading, I actually used to hate reading, and I started reading business books. I was actually in charge of the business section, and when I started reading that, and I started reading books on business, I stumbled in accounting and finance and what it meant.
You found your interest.
I found my interest and what it meant, and accounting, finance is always coupled with business. It's always linked to business. And at the time, my desire was that I wanted to be a chartered accountant, and that's where I got interested to say, look, let me then register for an undergrad in accounting. I later on decided I don't think that's what I want to do, and then I switched to finance. But that is where it all started. But I think in the back of my head, entrepreneurship was still there.
When did that bug hit you then?
It was always, I was always inventing and coming up with things.
Wow.
I was always that kid that's just trying to come up with new ideas. And the funny thing about that is I was always trying to work with people. So if I come up with a new business, a new concept or whatever, I'd always tell my friends, guys, come, let's work together. I've got this really great business. But what's funny is I realized that people don't see your vision as much as you do. And in my days, I assume that, if I tell someone like, hey, I got this great idea, they'll have the same drive, the same desire. And over the years, nothing ever executed or pulled off. And, the one time that I decided to start Zenzele, I said to myself, you know what, I'm going to do this on my own. I'm going to start this thing from scratch, and I really want to drive it alone. And in future, once it's all set up, then people can come through.
Who would you say has played a very pivotal role in influencing you and helping to refine your character?
I think my mother did. So, you know, growing up, like I said, I used to live with my grandmother.
Yeah.
I actually didn't have a close relationship with my mother. You know, she got married to somewhere else, and you know, and somehow, and my real father was they weren't together, and so the dynamics of having a mother and a father in the same household is something that I didn't have. And later on in my life, in fact, you know, in my adult life, I had an opportunity to live with my mom. You know, my mom is a very spiritual person, and I think that it was so critical at that time because she believed in me so much. You know, she was the first person I used to pitch about this business, and as crazy as it may have sounded then, she really thought that it was something. And she was always like, when are you going to start Zenzele? You know, like a year will go by, it's like, what's going on with Zenzele? I'm just like, just wait, you know. And I really think that she was my first cheerleader, and she was always just poking and saying, you need to start this. And eventually, you know, I thought she would say, don't live a life of mediocrity. You know, she literally called me and she's like, you look like you want to settle for like a mediocre life. And that really scared me, you know. And I was fortunate that my mother would say that don't settle and be a mediocre person.
We spoke to a few people in your circle of love, and this is what they had to say about you, Tumi.
Hi, my name is Tumi Phake. I'm Tumi's mother. Tumi, as a child, he was a humble child, but I could see this leadership in him. And whenever he plays with other children, you could see he became dominant. I could see this leadership in him. He wasn't naughty. He was a good child. He used to play with others, but like I say, he used to wanting to lead, wanting to be bossy. You know, when we play with other children, he would even come to an extent of saying to them, wait for me, I'm coming, don't do anything before I come back. He used to dream of not being working for anybody. He was working at R&B. I remember him saying to me, Ma, I won't be working for these people forever. He would even cut pictures of a big house, and then he would write and say, I'm going to be a billionaire. You know, every time when I go to his bedroom, I would see that, and he'd say, Ma, this is what is going to happen to me. I won't be working for anybody for a lifetime. I want to be my own boss. Well, what I love about Tumi, he's a loving person. He's a God-fearing person. He's respectable. He's, you know, he's somebody who is he's got humility. I wish Zenzele can, you know, spread to all the countries, you know, internationally or nationally, I can say. And also, what I wish for Tumi, I wish Tumi to remain being a God-fearing person, because without God, there's nothing you can do. You can have money, you can be successful, but God must be the foundation of whatever you do.
Earlier on, we spoke about the joys that you receive from doing the job that you actually love. What have been some of the challenges you've experienced along the way?
You know, the challenges is being young in the space. I think that constantly trying to redefine and constantly trying to show people who you are and your business, you know, and really trying to drive people to your vision. It's a challenge, and that comes with a lot of, you know, dynamics and deliverables from, you know, speaking to corporates about can you do this, to managing people, to working with stakeholders that are older than you, and always making people you know, trust you and believe in you. You know, having funders, investors, making them happy, your customers, and having to balance that. Because as a face, you know, the CEO, the founder of the business, you know, my biggest role is to sell the business and to make my stakeholders and shareholders and customers happy. And finding a balance to do that has been a challenge. And so what's important is creating a process flow that enables you to have the ability to manage those things. From a customer point of view, things like net promoter score for your customers and getting feedback to them. How can we improve our service? How can I keep my employees? You don't want to hire people only to have them leave. How do you retain? How do you create the right culture in your business? And all these little things count. And those are the things that make a great business. And so the challenge is being conscious about it, that I need to create a great culture to this business. And how do I make my staff understand my vision and share the same values and brand? And it's a very challenging thing.
And so in terms of barriers to entry, besides having to constantly prove yourself, perhaps have you had issues of financing, of cash flow?
No.
I mean, you are in financing, so that is your forte. But I mean, just operationally, what have been some of the challenges you face in that space?
Yeah, I mean, operationally, the challenge is when you are a growing business, at times in terms of capacity, shared sort of resources become the challenge. And if the business is scaling and growing very quickly and you don't have a lot of people to do it, it's very difficult. And sometimes I have to wear so many hats. So I wear the CEO hat, I wear the CFO hat, I wear the operations, the sales, the HR, legal, and so wearing those hats has been a challenge, but it's really taught me so much because I know a lot about different sort of aspect of the business.
Yeah.
And so when I start recruiting the right people to do the specific roles, you understand why and what's the purpose of that. And so and I think that like I was explaining when we were talking offline, that the biggest thing about businesses is creating the right culture, because without the people that work for Zenzele would not be where it is. These are the guys that make it happen every single day. And so you need to make sure that they understand and they share the same vision as you. Unfortunately, from a cash flow, capital raising, so far we've raised 30 million in capital raising, and I've been fortunate enough not to have those challenges as yet, because I think that with entrepreneurship, I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they assume that having an idea is important, a great business idea is important, but it's not critical. What's critical is having the execution plan. That is what is important for anything in life. And what investors or funders look for is, what is your execution plan? So if you want money, what's the plan around obtaining that money?
What would you say has been the biggest personal limitation you've had to overcome during your journey? And then in that, have you had any regrets about decisions that you've made?
Yeah, I mean, I think personal limitation is, being afraid to, take on certain things, because it could be, insecurity, being young in the space, and that has been the challenge, and not trusting my own instinct. I think, more and more I realize that I need to trust my intuition. I need to trust my gut feeling about certain things. And so my challenge is letting go of things that are not good for the business, for myself. I think we spoke about it, that we get in a comfort zone even when something is not really useful for us, and that is my personal development is understanding when something is not working, having the ability to say, I need to cut this off, it's not working, and move on. And I think the quicker I will be able to do that, it will have a significant impact on the business, because at the end of the day, you deal with relationship or deal with people, and sometimes you work, you're in a space where the relationship no longer work, but and it
and
becomes,
you feel it, you know it,
and it becomes difficult to cut it off, And so those are some of the learnings, personal learnings that I'm sort
Any
of.
decisions that you've made in the business space that you regret or you would do over?
Yeah, I think I gave up too much equity in my business.
What have been your top 3 tips that you've picked up that you'd like to impart to those watching?
I think the first one is, always surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. If you are the smartest person in the room all the time, then there's something wrong. So what I try and do is to always be around people that I can learn from, people that have, can share better ideas, and that's what I strive for, and the second one is to never stop believing in yourself, and always create that idea in your mind, but also live that idea. Everything that has happened to this day is something that I still have things on my wall. I still have goals, and 90% of those goals every year I achieve them because I see them, I feel them, I believe them. So really, I know sometimes it sounds cliche, believe in yourself, but it really goes a long way. And if you look at very, very successful people, the one thing that they have at night when they're sleeping is that self-motivation and self-belief. And the third one is, like I was explaining to you earlier, from a business and entrepreneurship point of view, that having a business idea is amazing, it's great, but it's not important. What's important is being able to execute. A lot of entrepreneurs, they have great business ideas, but the execution is something that they lack. And if you can't execute it yourself, find people that can help you execute that idea. And I think you will go a long way. And an execution plan is a business plan, it's a strategic plan, it's the A to Z as to how I'm going to take my business from here to there, and that's very important.
What does the future hold for Zenzele Fitness Group and for Tumi?
Zenzele is going to be a Pan-African business that will penetrate the African market, and we want to run 100 plus clubs around, from corporates to commercial space to universities, in the government space. So we want to be everywhere, providing health services, fitness and health services to everybody, making sure that we're offering something that looks and feels like a world-class fitness center, but that's affordable, where a person is not intimidated to come in and use the facility. So that is where we see ourselves, and I think we're definitely going to do that.
Tumi, thank you very much for sharing your story with us today. Thank you for sharing your pearls of wisdom, and we wish you all the best for your future endeavors. May you reach, may you shine, and may you become the best version of yourself during that process.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
A dream does not become reality through magic. It takes sweat, determination, and hard work. That's all we have for you this week. From myself, Liesl Wilson, and the rest of the team, it's goodbye for now.